Jesus will blow the trumpet of God, and his angels will gather together the elect. But where do they go? Pre-tribulationists assume this is a gathering of Jews, and they are gathered back to the nation of Israel. Post-tribulationists believe this is the church, and they are gathered into the air to meet Jesus and then return to the earth with him. Pre-wrath followers believe this is the rapture, and this is the saints being gathered into heaven. Who is right? The answer may be right in the text. First, we notice the gathering is a worldwide gathering from the four winds, which can be thought of as the 4 points of the compass. The second aspect of this gathering is that it will be from the furthest end of the earth to the furthest end of heaven. What does this mean? Is the gathering from the earth up to heaven? The simple reading of the text implies it. But many, if not most, believe it means a gathering from horizon to horizon. The horizon is where the earth and the sky meet, after all. If this does mean horizon to horizon, it is a very unusual construction. One would normally say from one end of the earth to the other, and not from the end of the earth to the end of heaven. It's a mixed metaphor. Earth to heaven would more likely be a vertical gathering, not a horizon to horizon gathering. This doesn't prove the point, but it certainly implies it. And if we search the Bible, this construction, using both the phrases end of the earth and end of heaven, is never found anywhere else. The most common phrase is end of the earth or ends of the earth, which is found 45 times. But only in Mark 13 is it used in connection with the end of heaven. This unique usage should immediately catch our attention. Other than Mark 13 and Matthew 24, there are only 4 places in the Bible that refer to the phrase end of heaven or ends of heaven. One passage refers to the path of the sun, and this is either a horizon or outer space. One passage is definitely referring to the heavenly abode of God. Then there are 2 prophetic passages, and depending on their time frame, either refer to the heavenly abode of God or possibly to a horizon. So based strictly on Old Testament references, we cannot tell the specific meaning of the phrase ends of heaven. However, we must ask, why, out of 50 uses of the phrases end of the earth and end of heaven, is there only one, like Mark 13:27, that uses both phrases? I contend that it is because it is discussing something quite different than a gathering from horizon to horizon, that it is describing a rapture into heaven. However, there is even more evidence, so let's continue to look at it. This phrase has a directional component to it. It uses the Greek preposition apo, meaning away from. So the gathering is away from the end of the earth. And another Greek preposition, heos, completes the directional nature of this phrase, meaning to or unto. So the gathering is away from the end of the earth to the end of heaven. Most translations give the destination of the saints as the farthest end of heaven. What is this? In the first century, the first heaven was the atmosphere, the second heaven was outer space, and the third heaven was the farthest heaven, and it was the abode of God. Paul referred to the heavenly abode of God using this exact term, the third heaven, in 2 Corinthians 12. Let's look at the parallel nature of this passage in 2 Corinthians and the verse we've been examining, Mark 13:27. First, both are talking about a rapture. Mark uses the term we've seen in episode 9, gathered together, or episynago. And Paul uses the same term as 1 Thessalonians 4, harpazo, or caught up. But both mean the same thing, rapture. Second, both are directional, using the same exact preposition, heos, which means to or unto. And finally, both end up at the same destination, the farthest end of heaven, or the third heaven. Heos is a bit of an unusual preposition. Most constructions of this sort use the preposition eis. But heos carries the meaning that one goes as far as. In other words, it implies passing both the first and second heaven to arrive at the destination of the third heaven, being gathered as far as the abode of God. So, when Paul wrote 2 Corinthians, was he referring to Mark 13:27 and this use of heos? Most likely he was. The constructions are identical, and these are the only two phrases like it in the Bible. So to summarize, it is almost assured that Mark 13:27 describes a rapture into heaven. First, it's the simple, common-sense reading of the text. Second, it is an absolutely unique usage. In 50-plus occurrences of the phrases end of the earth and end of heaven in the Bible, this is the only one that uses both phrases together. Why would the inspired Word of God use this unique construction if it didn't carry a special and unique meaning? And most importantly, it is exactly parallel to 2 Corinthians 12:2, the only other phrase about a rapture or catching up that specifically mentions it was into the heavenly abode of God. In contrast, the pre-tribulation rapture theory considers the gathering in Mark 13 to represent a supernatural gathering of Jews back to Israel by angels. But that's not what the Old Testament depicts. Rather, it shows them being gathered by humans and riding horses, mules, and camels. Isaiah also depicts the Jews returning by boat, but we don't see them returning on the wings of angels. So the question must be asked, why isn't a rapture into heaven the accepted view of Mark 13:27? The reason is that it's only consistent with the pre-wrath rapture view, which wasn't espoused until the 1990s. At that point, other theories had years to ingrain the idea that this verse was discussing a gathering from horizon to horizon. Now, however, you can easily see why this earlier view is highly unlikely, and like all other proofs in this series, an interpretation that favors the pre-wrath is preferred.